I headed down the 25 because it was 60 degrees down in Truth or Consequences. So if I stayed up here, there'd be consequences. If I headed down there, I'd experience a little bit more truth, right? Yeah, so I warmed up to that idea, and as I had that vista, and I love how our sound today sort of sounds like the ocean. It kind of had that water, that flow, that flowing feeling, which is amazing. So there I was with these beautiful people sitting outside at this place called Riverbend, and we had the view of the Rio Grande going by, and was just totally immersed in nature. And so that's our invitation today, is to be immersed in nature and to be immersed in the truth. And so that as we're immersed in that harmony and that love and that peace and that joy, what I know is that there is that place where I had set my intention to manifest that. And there was not a reservation for that particular place that I wanted, that particular room that I wanted. But what I did was I got dressed. I have my bag packed all the time. I have what we call in this New Thought movement that mental equivalent of what I would like to imagine. What I believe then becomes my experience. And then what my experience is then becomes my behavior. It then becomes my habit. So I have a habit of having a suitcase on wheels. So there I was, and I threw it in the car. And even though the reservation was not there when I left Corrales, it was there when I arrived because I had gotten dressed. I got up. I set that intention for the truth. And lo and behold, it revealed itself in so many wonderful ways. And I got to meet some really great people. And I remember on this path, and as Sherry said that God is driving the bus, I remember on this path about 2 years ago being met by Darlene Martinez. And they had flown me out here in March of 2014. And there Darlene was, and I had that same suitcase. There I was. It was already packed, ready to go on the next adventure. And so she greeted me with warm and open arms. And what we did was we then hopped in her car. She was driving that bus. And I hopped in that car to be with this loving community. And what she did was we dropped the suitcase. We just set it aside. And she picked up her dog, and we went for a walk. And what we got to do from here on out is to walk with lovely people. I have wonderful friends who I get to walk with and share beautiful divine nature with, and to head toward that truth and that sharing and that caring for one another. And so on this path, it's just this continual path. There's this place of that which is that sacred that is within us, and that sacred place where we experience that place here. And as I walked in this door, there was like this shower of goosebumps. Truly, I'm having it now. Are you having some goosebumps? Yeah, and remember those times in our life where there's that connection. So there was that connection at the airport. There was that connection that, yes, I was already packed and ready to have this experience and to share and care. And as I walked in this door, there was, yes, a shower of that intention that was made manifest to share and to care for one another. And so this door was open. And I know that like my heart, doors are open. So that door to the plane was open. The door to her car was open. The door to walking in nature was open. And that door remains open. And what I know is that Reverend Jack and I stood on this platform, and we lit a unity candle. We had two candles, and there was the celebration of loving oneness. And we lit a candle for everyone in this light of unity, in this light of oneness, in this purposeful nature of this divine nature of oneness. And I know that we continue to celebrate this today. And today we celebrate a power and a presence that is within us, and that wraps our love around us, just like Darlene Martinez had wrapped her warm embrace around us. And I know that we're all wrapping each other around in a warm embrace today and as we go forward in our lives. So I know we're part of this beloved one, and that we are this one source energy. We are this power, this presence, this amazing place of compassion and harmony and oneness. And that in our lives we can move from whatever sense of separation, whether it was that separation when I first hopped on the plane because I wasn't here yet, I may have felt separate, or it could have been that I was moving toward the oneness. I was moving toward that connection and that full expression, that connection and that full expression. And so I know that these states of being are who we are. These states of being as the oneness is who we truly are. We can move from whatever those consequences are in our life to that truth, right? And be in that warm water, that warm embrace. And so what I know is that we have a tendency, too, to find what we're looking for. And so that we can continue to look for that truth more and more in our life and not be having condition-based thinking or circumstance thinking like, oh, I was in Corrales and there wasn't a room at the inn, right? But no, I set the intent, and yes, there was a beautiful place. And I took responsibility for that experience. And then I headed south. I headed south for that where it was 60 degrees and sunshine. Because we can all bring that sunshine into our life. There's that energy of peace that touches us within. It touches our soul. It touches our heart, knowing that there, yes, is that open door, that open heart. And even Martin Luther King, who we celebrate tomorrow, brought us from a sense of separation into oneness, brought us into faith, brought us into that place where he says, you know, consider people are like tea bags, and we all gave you a tea bag as you entered the door today. Consider that we're like spirituality. We have that tea bag, and if, like at the hot springs where I was, consider that people are like tea bags. They don't know their own strength until they get into hot water and blend. And so sometimes we get into some have you ever been in hot water in your life? And you want to blend, and yes, you want to relax in that place and to know that you have that strengthening and that blessing and come from that place of spirituality, that nature, that true nature of who we are. And there was a climate of fear that Martin Luther King ended. It was a climate of fear, whether it was fear within people, whether it was fear in others, whether it was fear of the others' actions, where they had their thoughts that became behavior, became the habits, became that culture, that way of being. And what happened was he had us move from separation into oneness, from fear into more love. He had us move from that climate of fear. So what happened then? What happened as we celebrate living in peace and moving toward that art of peace as we embrace, like that wraparound love that Darlene Martinez gave me at the very beginning? So what happened? People said, whatever you are most afraid of, move toward that. Where there is separation, go into it. He said, go ahead and try to register to vote. And even if they just take down your name, go ahead and sit at that lunch counter. Go ahead and move forward in faith, even if you don't know what that next step is, even if you can't see that big picture of oneness. Move forward in that faith and oneness. And we're entering into a season of nonviolence. And we can do that in our heart. We can move into that center of peace, move into embracing that peace. And what the season of nonviolence is in this New Thought, Ageless Wisdom movement is it's 64 days of peace. Think of yourself having at least 2 months, 2 years of peace. And where it starts is on January 30th, which is Gandhi's assassination. And it culminates on April 4th, which is Martin Luther King's assassination. We have 2 months to experience and embrace peace, to experience that truth of who we are and not be affected so much by the consequences, but yes, to move forward in that sense of oneness. To go ahead and stand tall and extend a hand, and to stand in our center, to stand in that love and that peace of who we truly are. So we're entering in this season, and it was even Thoreau who taught Gandhi to have a greater art-filled life of peace. Gandhi listened to Thoreau and transcended those conditions for India, just as Martin Luther King helped transcend those conditions for our country and for our sense of oneness as spiritual beings having a spiritual experience. And just like Mother Teresa, who said to love anyway, no matter what, to love, to love anyway. And I'll paraphrase here. She said, give the world the best that you have, and it may not be enough. It may never be enough. Give Give your best anyway, yes, and it feels good. Give your best anyway. Forgive anyway. Be kind anyway. Love anyway. Be free anyway. Step up to vote. Step up to the lunch counter. Step up to the 25 freeway going down to share a spiritual experience. So we can begin to identify our life with spirit, with oneness, and with love. And we can do that through many ways that we experience here in community. We can do that on our own in meditation, where we elevate our sense of oneness. We place our undistractable attention on this sense of love and turn up the volume on that, amplify and magnify that sense of love that's within our heart, that open door that is ever available as we embrace peace in our life. And what meditation does is it awakens our awareness. And it's another word for self-realization is awareness. We turn up the volume on that self-realization, and we have that place where we see through real eyes as we realize who we truly are. And it increases the capacity for us to intuitively receive the guidance of Spirit. And it opens the heart's desire then to be this beneficial presence. So we know that we truly are a beneficial presence. Another way that we can amplify this powerful universal principle of moving into oneness or moving forward in faith, moving from fear, moving into love, is affirmative prayer. It's that place which is life-affirming, and it is that solid awareness, that which elevates our awareness, and it grounds us in a solid awareness of our oneness with Spirit. So if you want to take just a moment and remember a time where you had a solid grounding, a connection, a divine experience, just take a few moments and give yourself that gift. And it's that motion of that healing presence which then allows us to be these spiritual beings having a spiritual experience in such a beautiful way with an open-hearted, wholehearted place. And it's that intuitive communion with Spirit. It's that which elevates our awareness. So just take a moment and remember a time when you felt elevated, when you felt inspired, when you felt intuitively guided. And feel free to place your hand on your heart. Don't have to, no one's looking. Just to give yourself that warm embrace, that same warm embrace of peace, of love, this love of the divine nature that is who we truly are. And to be grateful for this presence, this essence, this divine experience. And just know that you can call upon that at any time. And to know that there is that divine connection with our highest self, and that we have that rapport with our spiritual nature. And when you're ready, go ahead and open up your eyes, and to know that this is the lens through which we look. This is the beautiful, clear vista from which we see, from which we experience the flow. And to know that we can change our mind like that at any moment, that we can arrange our mind, and that we're all a part of something larger. We're a part of the one mind, that one life source, that one life force that is within each and every one of us. And we can look through that lens. We can look and let love lead our life. So I know that we are truly empowered by that. And that prayer is not asking God for anything. It's not looking to something that's outside of ourselves. It's something that is life-affirming for us. And it's a shift in our perspective. It's a shift in our awareness. It's that which elevates our awareness to that which is true. And we can remember the truth of who we are and see those spiritual qualities that we all come from. We get to know that our every thought is a prayer. That as we think, we are aware. Our every thought is a prayer. And that being aware, elevating our awareness, brings us more and more into the light, into the love, into the oneness and the harmony of our true nature. And I know that life is made new every single second. Every single second. Every single breath, our life is made new. And what we get to do is initiate that transformation. You know, our breath just knows what to do. There is this energy which is breathing us. There is this source energy, this life force, this thing that breathes us. And so we get to be this and breathe this and know this and trust that we are initiating that place where the energy thrives. And the great philosopher, David Bowie, I think he'll be known for other things, as a great musician and a wonderful husband. And he said, and it's like, you know, as I was standing at the hot springs, looking over this beautiful vista, and I'd gone up to Elephant Butte Lake, and I talked with a friend on the phone, and I said, "I'm taking you with me. You're here now. Look at look at what we're seeing, and see through that lens too." The great philosopher David Bowie says, "If you feel safe in the area you're working in, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little bit further into the water than you feel you're capable of being in. Go a little bit out of your depth. And when you feel that your feet are not quite touching the bottom, like you're just on that vantage point where you're ready to fly. When you don't feel that your feet are quite touching the bottom, you're just about in the right place to do something exciting, you know? So it's like I headed down and I knew that place was already there. And have you done that? Have you been swimming like that? And it can really feel how associated the body feels in that. And sometimes we get to remind ourselves of our divine nature of our body, of our mind, of our spirit, and to know that spirit is living in our health, in our finances, in our relationships, in all those areas where we're just on that tip. And that's much like prayer, is elevating our new awareness. And so we have an awareness of that newness, of that next adventure, that next endeavor that is available for us on that path. And so we're waking up to that. And there's so many ways to wake up. We can be in community. We can attend a lot of the programs here that are enriching our lives, and to have that deep connection through one another as our true nature, as that truth, that expression. We can go online. There's a Ministry of Prayer online. Our world leader of Ministry of Prayer was here last week, and he's amazingly, his energy has really started off this year. It's kicked off a wonderful year of living powerfully, and that's our theme, is living powerfully. We can also have a daily affirmation. In fact, you can subscribe to a daily affirmation at csl.org. It's at the very upper right-hand corner. You just say, "Hey, subscribe," and boom, it appears as a wonderful affirmation in your inbox. You can also call a friend. We also have our professional prayer practitioners who will be giving a prayer and care fair at the end of the month. We can make a choice on Sundays to receive an affirmative prayer over here, right there by the prosperity fountain. You can receive if you're open and receptive to receive. There's no reason to not be engaged, to be engaged as life and with that higher vantage point. We know that place where Dr. Wayne Dyer is our book of the month, The Power of Intention. And today we're covering a little bit about moving from intention to manifestation. Realizing that place is already available, that we've already arrived. Like Richard Bach says, the way to get there is to already arrive, to know that you've already arrived. I love his uncle was Marcus Bach, who was a leader in the Unity movement, and he gave wet kisses on the side of the cheek. That was his uncle. Wet kisses right here, it was sweet. So Dr. Wayne, back to Dr. Wayne. So he says, many people move through their life looking for reasons to be offended. And if we think about the culture that shifted, we don't need to go around life looking to be offended. But yes, we can have that alchemy, that divine alchemy, to be an agent of change, or to be a beneficial presence of change. And to know that as we have that shift within ourselves, then what's possible as we step up to vote, or as we step up to that lunch counter, as we step up and stand tall in our own life, that yes, there's that beautiful place to stand, and we can anticipate that more of our true nature shines in that light of standing tall and standing together side by side, looking in that vista like David Bowie was looking at that next greater yet to be. And imagine your next greater yet to be, what that is, how that feels. And we can move from intention to manifestation in our lives. Now, my Uncle George, does anyone else have an Uncle George? Some of you who've been in classes are familiar with this story. So I like to say, I have some class, but most of the time I have no class whatsoever. But if you've been in some of the classes here, you may have heard this story. Uncle George painted acrylics. He lived at Leisure World in Laguna Beach, California, and he would paint and teach acrylics to all those folks, and it was lovely. He painted this beautiful picture of Diamond Head. And it was at the foot of the bed for about a year. And at I used to do some work with hotels. And at the holiday party at one of these hotels, I won that trip. It looked just like the painting. It was the Sheraton Grand on Waikiki Beach, and it was exactly like that image, moving, as I talked about, that mental equivalent, having your bag packed if you want to go somewhere. Go ahead and hop on the 25 freeway if you're going to have that destination be made real. And so Uncle George painted this painting of Diamond Head. And little did I know I would be the grand winner at the Sheraton Grand party, and it was grand. Spent a wonderful time. It was the exact same view. Another painting that he painted is balloons. And here we are in Albuquerque. I'd had that outside my bathroom, and balloons right here. Here we are with balloons. So I'm going home to look in my closet and see what else Uncle George has painted. It's like, well, what's next? What's next? And so we can all ask that question. What is next? What's that image? And so what if we move from that climate of whatever we're not so interested in anymore, we move into that next climate, this next climate, that climate of Diamond Head or whatever's next. What if we accept that climate of love that's within us? We have that climate. We can turn up the thermostat on that climate and anticipate sharing more of that true nature. Dr. Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of The Science of Mind, which is a guide for spiritual living, it's a philosophy of faith, a way of life. He says on page 555, he may have summed it up as far as I'm concerned. He says, I accept the fullness of my own divine well-being. Within myself is peace, poise, power, wholeness, and happiness. All the power that there is God. It is wholeness. My mind now entertains and reflects the divine into everything which I do, say, and think, into my body and into my affairs. My mind reflects the fullness of the divine substance. Living spirit within me is me, myself. Two quick stories is I was remembering that divine thing of myself when I had dinner down there, and I went to a vegan restaurant, and I was reminded that tofu is kind of like consciousness. And it has no flavor of its own, right? It has no flavor of its own. It just depends on what it's marinating in. Right? So consciousness is a lot like tofu. And so there I was, marinating in the hot springs, marinating in that sense of harmony and well-being and poise and assurance and just calm and being from the centered place of oneness and back into that oneness. So I know that we have that place where we can all be at the top of the world, much like David Bowie was. We can be at the top of the world, being part of creation and knowing that we're all a part of something larger, and that, yes, there is that greater yet to be, that something larger that is within ourselves and that we can share with others. And I have one more story. And so all we need to do is to take that first step. Martin Luther King left a legacy. What is your legacy? What is your legacy today? And all it takes is that first step. Martin Luther King says, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. Let's take that first step. Let's have that high attitude, that high altitude. What is your first step? What is your living legacy? Let's take that first step. And I'm reminded of a story by a 92-year-old who has an inspirational and heartwarming story. It reminds me of my grandmother's. And there was a 92-year-old, petite, well-poised, and very proud lady. And she was fully dressed each morning. It was like, I got dressed up at Corrales. I threw in my swimsuit and my towel to make sure I had that ready to go. And so she's dressed each morning by 8 o'clock, and her coif is fashionably all the hairs are in order. And even though she's legally blind, she has all of her makeup beautifully poised and just a beautiful expression. She's fashionably coiffed, and her makeup is just perfectly applied. And she moved in to a nursing home on this very day. And there she sat in the lobby. And the reason she needed to be there was her 70-year-old husband had just passed. So it made her move necessary. After many hours, as she was waiting in the nursing home lobby, she smiled and sweetly was told that her room was ready. We're ready for you. It was much like this door being open. We're ready for you. Can you imagine waking up in the morning and saying, Spirit, I'm ready for you, or people, I'm ready for you. As she maneuvered her walker to the elevator, she was provided a visual description of her room because she wasn't going to be able to see it. And it included even the eyelit sheets that had been hung on the window. And as she's walking to the elevator, she says, I love it. And it was just like she'd received, like an 8-year-old would receive a puppy. I love it. And the person who was with her said, Mrs. Jones, you haven't even seen your room yet. Just wait. She said, that doesn't have anything to do with it. Happiness is something you decide ahead of time. Whether I like my room or not doesn't depend on how the furniture is arranged. It's how I arrange my mind. Yeah. So let's take that moment to have that arrangement of that place in our mind, knowing that we can have the best arrangement possible. Of the greater yet to be, knowing that there is this infinite presence, this essence, this divine nature, this thing called life. It is the love essence, it is the peace, it is the joy-filled nature, the divine nature of who we truly are. It is that place which is filled and overflowing in the flow of this divine nature and this love. And being in this sense, in this place of oneness, of the loving oneness, I know that there is the infinite potentiality and the pure possibility which is coming forward. It is that forward momentum. It is that taking of the first step. That first step, even if we don't know what the staircase beholds. But what I know is that there is that beloved one. There is the beloved one in whom there is that place of the divine nature. There is that beauty which shines so brilliantly and brightly, as if standing on the top of the world, knowing that it is of this divine creation and that there is creativity and resourcefulness and wholeness and wellness. In this place of well-being, it shines freely and fully as this radiant health, as vibrant energy, as the abundant flow and the free-flowing good. It is harmonizing. It is very present in this divine connection, knowing that there is the oneness and the divine connection at all times. So I know that there is this gratitude and the fullness of appreciation, knowing that, yes, there is that which is so grateful. It is the gratitude that just wells up and pours and spills over and is overflowing. So being in the flow of this thing called life, I know that as I release this idea into the creative medium, that it is fulfilled. And I celebrate. And so be it. And so it is.